Yep, excellent. Right, start again. Good evening, thanks everyone for joining. This is the Planning Committee of Frome Town Council. I'm Steve Tanner, I'll chair this evening's meeting. We make our meetings available to as many people as possible, regardless of whether they're here or online. So we use a hybrid setup of here in the Town Hall chamber and online via Zoom. For those in the room, little housekeeping, the emergency exit is to the rear of the room and the assembly point is in the car park. Toilets can be accessed at the end of the corridor on the right-hand side, or there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift outside as well. Any panelists on Zoom, please use the electronic raised hand by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. Anyone in the room, please raise your hand. Any attendees on Zoom, please pose questions through your Q&A board. Attendees' names will become visible on the questions board for the record as your question is answered. Any attendees in the room, please raise your hand. Tonight, Owen's going to clerk, Jane's going to manage the questions board and participant settings, and the meeting will be recorded for minuting purposes, and we also live stream to our YouTube channel. On the agenda, item number 1 on the agenda, any questions, comments or information from the public on councillors that isn't relevant to the other things we'll discuss? Nothing? Great. Item number 2 on the agenda, to agree apologies of absence received.
We have received apologies from Lindsay, Fiona and Andy, and I would recommend that those apologies are acceptable.
Right. Well, that, thank you.
That was unanimous.
Yeah, it was unanimous, thank you. Item number 3, any declarations and members' interests? No? Great. Item number 4, to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of January 2026.
Yes, that's the time. It's from the 8th of January.
I've got it here, 8th of Jan, but it says 2025. Yeah. So we nearly got it right. Anyway, the minutes of the last meeting.
Last meeting was fine, yeah.
That's unanimous as well.
Right. And item number 6, consider major plan applications received. So over to Owen tonight.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so I'm going to start with item number 864, which is Windsor Crescent. This is a self-build, single-storey detached 3-bedroom dwelling, located just outside the conservation area, just adjacent to the conservation area. It's on the boundary. It entails a division of the plot, currently known as Apple Trees, to create a new site for a single self-built dwelling. And the reason for the application is current owners would like to downsize and build a more manageable sized home. No, that's that one again. So you can see there from the site layout, well, you can see the existing site layout there on the left, actually, and with Apple Trees, the building on the left-hand side of the image there, currently open to the right, and the proposal is to put the new dwelling there, as shown on this one here. There's currently a shared driveway, which is used by numbers 74 and 75, Windsor Crescent, and they use that driveway to access the garages to the rear of their properties, as shown there. And one of those garages is shared with the proposed property, so that will be their garage and parking area. Design and access statement states that 74 and 75 have off-street parking at the front. Doesn't appear to be the case for number 74, and it appears to be sort of questionable for number 75. At least they don't appear to use it. And that's an image of the entrance to the driveway there. So that's a reverse image looking outwards from the plot towards Windsor Crescent, and the piece of land that the new house will be located on the right-hand side there. Aerial image there with the open area in the middle. That's what we're talking about there, and the proposed superimposed on top, and layout as shown. 3 bedrooms, a single story.
Great, thank you. Did you want to say anything at this stage? Philip, can you use a microphone, please, just so the people online can hear, otherwise they can't hear. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah, if you could
You'd hold it quite close.
If you could just introduce yourself as well, again, just for minuting purposes. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Emma. I live at number 74 Windsor Crescent and use the shared access attached to the proposal daily. The lane currently only functions safely at present because the space outside the existing garage has always been kept clear, allowing vehicles to turn. The proposal removes that space, which would force vehicles to reverse the full length of the drive onto a blind bend on Windsor Crescent, which was already busy at peak times and used as a cut-through to avoid congestion at the lights on adjacent main roads. Even yesterday, with both spaces in front of the neighbouring garage clear, I observed 2 work vans having to reverse onto the bend with a person guiding them. That shows how marginal the access already is and how dependent it is on informal cooperation. The application also states that we and my neighbour at 75 have off-street parking to the front, which is incorrect. Neither of us do. The only off-road parking available to us is at the end of the shared lane. My concern is that the shared access is not suitable for an independent dwelling, and the intensification of its use will make the area unsafe. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Do you want to say anything? You don't have to.
I currently live in number 75, and I just want to say that photo looks as if you could drive a car on there, but it's a really narrow driveway and has never had a car on it. I've lived there for 12 years, and it was, 1930s, really narrow drive.
Yeah.
So it can't, and that's it. And it's just that previously, the 2 houses there, 74 and 75, there's only been one car used. So there's only been 3 cars really using that drive with 4 houses. That's maybe doubling, because that could be 8 cars then with deliveries, etc. So it's just just whether it's feasible for a driveway to hold that. Okay.
Okay, thanks very much indeed.
It seems like a really good use of the land, but the access is just the issue, isn't it? And it's really great that you come to explain that to us, because we obviously don't know what it's like to live in the area. And I don't know, I assumed that some people were using that as a rat run, but I didn't know for sure. I just wondered, has anyone ever proposed to Highways that it gets, I don't know, humps or something that would slow people down and make it less attractive for that? I know that's a sort of side issue to what you're saying here, but you wanted to come back on that.
And maybe you know about this, Deirdre. One of our neighbours mentioned that around 10 years ago, he wasn't sure of the exact date, there was a proposal to make the access only one way. But he said it got accepted apparently, and then it went quiet and they re-tarmacked. So it has been known for a while that it is used as a cut through, and just wasn't sure.
That junction around it is difficult, isn't it? And it just feels like, of course you'd use it, and this is unfortunately on that very sharp bend there.
When Wallbridge was closed, when they were doing the works on the railway bridge in November last year, and everything was coming down Ron Road.
Yeah, it was
It was
terrible.
used a lot then as
Yeah.
a cut through, wasn't it? I
It's
do
really
remember
busy
it.
during that
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Just wouldn't occur to me, it's really rude, isn't it? To do that. Someone's,
I
Think.
So the main issue, as far as I can, is if you're putting your car in your garage with the development as proposed, you're going to have to reverse back down that lane in order to get out.
Yeah, so currently the turning circle is the parking space that is available in front of the garage, but that is actually proposed as a parking space in the proposal. Currently, if all 4 cars park within those allocated spaces, there is no turning circle. Therefore,
You'd have to reverse
us
back.
or any deliveries, ambulances, they will not be able to get out without reversing onto the bend. And that's what I saw yesterday with the tree surgeons. And that was with the spaces empty, and they were still reversing.
They still
So
have to reverse back.
exactly, yeah. So it's
fire is a thing, isn't it, as well? Fire
yeah.
access
Access.
down there. Yeah.
So the actual development itself, putting a new bungalow there is you haven't really got an issue with it. It is just about that access, really.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it's the more amount of people needing to use that access because there isn't any other way for pedestrians at Apple Trees or driving to access it. So at the moment, there's nowhere even for people to walk down that road because it's that lane because it's so narrow.
Yeah.
So basically, the intensification of it is not really equipped for that lane. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Philip or Mark, any? I don't think we've heard from highways yet. Mm. Sorry, Philip.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. It is already being used as I'm not speaking for or against it at the moment. It is already being used as an access road, so therefore vehicles already use that. You mentioned the word, if I may, intensification. It's one extra dwelling, which may be, I think the average in probably for him is about 2 cars can be per dwellings, something like that. So it might increase that by 2 more vehicles. They're going to have the same issues that you have and others have, and they still have to drive up and down the lane. It seems to me, and also putting aside the issues of the cut through and the road parking, because road parking is road parking. As long as there are no restrictions and you park safely, you can park on the road. I mean, anybody can. So I think for me, what this issue really boils down to is that an adequate space is left for turning at the top. I understand and I get the point about reversing, shouldn't be reversing onto a main road anyway. That would seem to alleviate, if not eliminate, the issue. Otherwise, I can't see a reason that, an extra 2 cars might cause. There will obviously be traffic during construction that will need to turn at the top. So if that could be something that is considered, that might be a way round.
Thanks, Philip. Jane, from a highways perspective, what are they? Could you second guess what they're likely to say?
I think they will be very concerned about vehicles reversing out onto a highway. The vehicles need to be able to enter and exit in a forward gear. So yes, I should imagine that they would have an objection to that. And if you as neighbours have submitted your comments highlighting that it's very likely that vehicles will have to reverse out, I'm hopeful that they would pick that issue up. And I think, as Philip said, the issue is not the new dwelling. It's the fact that it's that there will be no turning area. I agree. It looks like a good infill plot, but if it's vehicular access is not safe, then that's the issue.
It's probably worth saying, if you can see where my cursor is on the screen there, that line is a blockwork is like stone wall.
Right.
So in terms of providing more turning area in this area, it wouldn't seem to be possible.
No.
It would have to be somewhere else.
Philip, sorry.
I'm just looking at this on satellite, so it's street view. We talk about a turning circle. In fact, there is really no turning. It's if you can get in and drive into the garage or in front of the garage, what's needed is just reversing space to then be able to drive out. If this particular dwelling doesn't permit that, then there's a real issue, and as Jane says, to reverse out. But if vehicles can drive into their parking space or garage, reverse, and then drive down the lane correctly, that should be okay. So it's a question of making sure that there is enough space for vehicles to do that. If any household then has 2 vehicles to park at the back there, that's their issue. But as long as there is space to do that.
We're talking about extra vehicles, emergency vehicles and stuff like that. If somebody was parked in front of those garages, aren't we? That's what we're discussing. We're not discussing maybe the general day-to-day. We're talking about the worst case scenario, I suppose, just rather than walking into that.
Yeah, we can't, I mean,
But-
we can't have vehicles versing down a single track.
No, that's exactly my point. No, yeah, but also emergency vehicles will be heading into there. As long as they can get in, that's fine. And I've seen emergency vehicles in the past will go on the grass if they have to, and they'll reverse onto the grass if they have to get in and out. It's not impeding them getting in. If that was the case, then I'd have serious concerns. It's not impeding any emergency vehicles getting in.
What I'm hearing, okay, give me if I'm wrong, and James writing this down for me, is that we don't object to the erection of the new dwelling, but the layout in particular and the position of the parking spaces is going to mean that cars will be reversing onto the main road, and provisions need to be made so that to ensure that vehicles can safely turn and drive back, down, forward, not in reverse.
Did you have one more point?
Sorry, didn't see.
I just saw you put your hand up.
Yeah, no, sorry, it wasn't really a point. It was just that it isn't just in terms of when it's an emergency. It's every time we go to park or to go out, there isn't enough room. It gives the impression that there is a turn-in circle, but without that, there isn't. So it's every time we go in, we have to reverse and turn around. So it's every single time. Okay.
So what you're saying is you're not recommending unless there's
Unless there's a redesign of the vision
to make further
vehicles so that
room to turn.
vehicles don't reverse back down. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'll propose that.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
No. Yeah. Right, move on. You don't have to stay for the rest. You can go. I think everyone else here is for Garston Farm, is that correct? Just wanted to make sure, because there is a couple other ones. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. It's always good to see people, and yeah, by all means, we'll post our comments to the planning portal, and I mean, I know you've already done it, haven't you? So you'll see our comments go up very soon. Thanks very much for coming. Thank you.
Yeah, flip it up, and if you just nod to me and I'll flip it along for you.
So,
Comes, we just, you better just introduce.
Yeah, we'll
it for
just
people
introduce
online.
it quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry, Louise.
Sorry, Louise.
Yeah, so this is item number 871. Land adjacent to Garston Farm, erection of a 4-bedroom dwelling house, and the applicant has a presentation that they'd like to deliver. Take away, Louise.
really, we just wanted to kind of go over, obviously, we've had a deferral from the last planning meeting, so we kind of just wanted to give you an update on how it's progressed from there, and just go over kind of key concerns and how those have been addressed. So that's what this presentation will do. There's a few slides, but I will go through them quite quickly, so bear with me. these are just some updated visuals. So that's the front and rear 3Ds. Owen, if you can do that. So the key aspects of the last meeting that came from Frome Town Council were query of the red line boundary ownership, query on accuracy of drawings, concerns for location and scale of garage, provision of a mechanism to secure delivery of the ecological and biodiversity benefits, and some information on utilities. So the next slides will just kind of address those key points. So we had a discussion with the planner. There was some kind of debate about what the red line boundary should be, but she wanted us to resubmit just showing what is owned by the applicant. So we have resubmitted the location plan just showing what is in the applicant's site ownership, and have also submitted the title deeds which detail the full vehicular access rights given to the applicant. So that's on their file. So that's an update on there. There's no changes proposed to the private access or the existing access road. There was a query on the accuracy of the drawings and visualisations, particularly produced by our landscape visual impact assessment. There was an inaccuracy in that, but the only inaccuracy was to do with the height of the garage. We raised the garage height because Adam realised he needed somewhere to store materials during the build, and this wasn't picked up by the previous wireframes. It doesn't affect any of their findings. It doesn't affect any of their findings of the report. However, all inaccuracies in that regard have been rectified in our latest revision, and they've also provided us with their methodology for placing the building and how they use their how they place the geolocate the building with the 3D model. So this is just from them, and an accuracy statement that I got from David Jarvis Consultants. If you could go to the next page. So this is an accuracy statement from them. Our visualization methods for the visual impact assessment comprise panoramic photography, consisting of a series of stitched single-shot photographs. Field survey photographic records are prepared and presented in accordance with Landscape Institute technical guidance. And this process has been successfully used in countless planning applications and tested at inquiry. And this just shows their process for doing that. There were some
Sorry, could you
concern-
just go back a second? Can you just say what the middle one is showing? I'm not familiar
Yes,
with
which-
what these are.
So this is, if you go, so these are the viewpoints. So they take all the photographs of across the site.
Yeah.
That is then put into their 3D modeling software along
Yeah.
with our 3D model, which is then geolocated to be in the correct position.
Yes.
And then they superimpose our model onto that to be able to tell where it would be located within.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is the existing barns here, barn and river barn, and then they put within the proposed development.
Got you.
This is
Sorry.
the photo
Thank
of the area.
It
No, got you.
it might look a little odd, Polly, because unfortunately there's something wrong with our projector and everything is a lot more yellow than it should
It
be.
is very yellow.
Yeah.
Apologies.
I'll show you the kind of finished wireframes that they've done as well. This was really just to show their methodology.
Yeah. No, I just couldn't decide what we were looking at. in that
Yeah,
second
no,
one.
that
Thank
was
you.
just to kind of relay any concerns over the accuracy of their data. Obviously, the height of the garage has been rectified. Now, there was a concern over the location of the garage, which was located close to the western boundary. Although this wasn't a concern for our heritage consultant, we understand that it was a concern of the neighbours. So we had a meeting on site with the neighbours from Garston Farm, and they relayed their concerns over the garage and showed a preference for relocating it so that it was actually adjacent to the main house and away from the closest boundary to them. This is Garston Farm over here, and they had some concerns over its proximity to them and preferred to move it so it was part of the main building footprint. if you could go to there. So we took that on board and we actioned that, and that's been submitted as a revision to Somerset Council. You can see the garage has moved, so it becomes a continuation of the main footprint. That's also reduced its scale because it's moved further up the site, and we didn't want to make it higher than the ridge of the building, so it's now lower than the building itself. And this has hopefully mitigated the concerns of any impact of its impact on Garston Farm.
May I just ask, where the summer house is at the moment, where the garage was proposed?
Yes.
Garage is moving to the side of the house.
Yes.
Is there anything proposed to go where the summer house is now?
No, we're just the summer house. No, we're not changing that. It's as
Either
existing.
stay or be removed, but nothing new will
No.
be? Okay,
No.
thank you.
As you can see here, that's just the existing. It's like a little shed on the site. So no, nothing's being proposed in place of that. So it will all be within that main footprint that you can see there. Owen, if you could. So this was just to show you the revision that's been submitted. So you can see here, the garage has got lower ridge height and has just been moved adjacent to there. And this is the side kind of facing out towards the meadow. And again, in plan, you can see it's just been added to the end of the footprint. So this, although it wasn't Adam's first choice, we understand and appreciate the concerns from Garston Farm, and it felt like something we could actually do to help mitigate their concerns over that. One of the aspects that was discussed was the B&G commitments. Obviously, we've got a 425% improvement across the wider site, but how do we guarantee that? I think there's some query about, B&G perhaps not continuing. So although when we submitted it, we assumed that was a legally binding agreement. So it seems that it's not. So there's been discussion about a Section 106 agreement, and that's an ongoing. We've approached that with the planner because Adam's completely committed to doing all of these improvements and not developing any of the rest of the land. There's no question over his commitment to do that. So we spoke to the planning officer and they said they needed to wait for comments to come back from their own ecologist, as that would feed into any Section 106 agreement that's drawn up. So we're kind of waiting for those comments to come back. And should it look like planning was going to be approved, then Adam will appoint a solicitor to draft a Section 106 agreement that can then be signed between us and yourselves, I guess. Yeah. No, with Somerset. Okay. So that will include a commitment to the biodiversity gains that are included within the application, and that includes detailed information on what will be carried out, and also a commitment to ongoing maintenance and not developing any rest of the land. Okay. Some information on utilities. So this has been submitted as part of our revision. So a statement has been issued to Somerset to give an idea of that, because there was a kind of question about that. There's ongoing discussions with SSE about the potential to bring the best route to bring electricity into the site. There's a couple of options. Main option we're looking at is taking it over the bridge, down the grass bank and over the bridge. So they're assessing that at the moment. So that's an ongoing discussion that we're having with SSE. They are going to come and do a site survey. We've sent them some drawings, various locations. There will, for water, there is a spring, and the proposal is to do an on-site borehole, which will follow the guidelines of the Water Industry Act, private water supplies regulations and water resources, but that's the provision for water. There will be no gases proposed for the site, so propose an air source heat pump. And we benefit from a very efficient plan form and natural cross and stack ventilation, so there's no cooling proposed. only the heating demand. Any other further questions on that, we can go, but it might be worth maybe seeing if people have questions of it. I don't want to take up all the time. This is just a air source heat pump neighbour impact statement. So we did an assessment on how far away the neighbours were and what the sound of an air source heat pump, what an impact it would have on them. So Silver Barn, which is the barn, is 25 metres away, closest point, and Garston 39 metres closest point. There's no direct line of sight, so there's buildings, stone walls, mature trees, hedges and scrub that will visually be between them. And units now, they're modern and low noise, so we did an assessment, and it's expected to, by the time it reaches them, to be 20-25 dB, which I think they gave the sound of leaves rustling. Yeah, as a kind of gauge on that. And the planning standard is 42 dB to the nearest neighbour, so we're well within that. So key objections from neighbours were query to red line boundary, which we've gone through, more information on proposed levels, so those have been provided within the latest revision, query on the accuracy of drawings, so that's been provided, and all of the David Jarvis now shows all the garage exactly as proposed. Contrary to Owls and visibility from Rodham Meadow, I can go into that in a little bit more detail, but both our landscape visual impact assessment and the heritage statement both conclude that the development wouldn't harm the existing characteristics of the Owls. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. There was discussion over it being contrary to the conservation policy. So we are not conservation specialists. We hired a conservation specialist to undertake a heritage statement, and they concluded that it presented a minor change to the status quo of existing dwellings in the vicinity, and that the farmhouse is set in with the curtilage that is defined on its southern and eastern sides by at least by substantial boundaries. I can't read, I'm sorry. So there's no visual relationship between the house and its agricultural adjacent landscape, and therefore the meadow to the east of the track to the former farmstead does not allow the listed building to be experienced. So therefore its significance can't be understood or appreciated in relation to with the site itself. There's a very long heritage statement which you can all read for that if you want to. There was a concern over commercial use, but there's no application for commercial use. This is purely a residential application. There was concern over B&G commitments not being undertaken. Like I said, Adam's committed to securing that through the appropriate legal framework. Impact of the garage, we've relocated that to reduce any potential impact on that. There was a concern over effect on residential amenity. There's no adverse effect on amenity, and on the next slide, I'll show how the building is cited specifically. Although neighbours don't have a right to a view, we did think about the neighbours quite a bit when we were citing the building, and to ensure that the neighbours of the barn actually retained their view across the land. So we'll show that in a minute. There was a concern over a lack of mention of badgers, which we were very confused about because there were badgers in our submitted report. However, they have to legally be taken out by Somerset. It's a protection thing in case anyone wants to harm a badger set. So they are in the ecology report and they are discussed and addressed, but that can't show up online. So that's why the neighbours weren't able to see that aspect of it. So the open area of local significance, which is the major kind of policy, the key policy, I would say, for this development. Now, the policy is that if the development would harm the existing characteristics of the Owls. Now, I think harm is your key point. It's not about you can't develop on it, it's would it harm the existing characteristics of that Owls. Now, the site has very limited openness. It's surrounded by a dense crop of trees that, in all but the winter months where you can kind of glimpse it. It's completely invisible in the summer, as you can see from these photos, which zoom in on the site. So this is the site where the building would be here. And again, here. Obviously, our landscape visual impact assessment assesses worst case scenario, so that only goes for the winter views when the leaves aren't in leaf, when the trees aren't in leaf. But due to the enclosed nature of the site and the dense crop of mature trees that surround it, there really is very, very little openness to that site unless you are in the site itself, which is a private site with no public access. So it's not about the openness you experience within the site, it's the openness that you experience when you're not in the site, of which there isn't really very much openness at all. The only openness really is to the bottom field where there's a few benches across from Rodden Meadow. There is a little bit of openness there, but that won't be affected. That's miles away from, it's right on the other opposite end of this 4-acre site to the development itself. And therefore that will stay open and will only be improved by the management of the trees and the biodiversity aspects that are going on down that part of the site. So the application site itself is located in the far kind of corner. It's a very small section of the whole site itself, and it's located adjacent to existing dwellings. So it's the backdrop of those views that are glimpsed through those trees already has a backdrop of dwellings to it. So if you kind of, sorry, Owen, do you mind? Because it's located with already a backdrop of dwellings to it and is barely visible anyway, the harm that it's doing is, what harm is it doing to that existing characteristic? This is just an extract from our landscape visual impact assessment. I don't know if you would like to read that just yourselves, because every time I try and read it, I stumble on my words, but that's the summary. And they summarise that it's not at odds with policy DP2 and there wouldn't be a harm to those existing views. So I'll just show you quickly those existing views, if that's right, Owen. So you can see here, this is the
Sorry, where is it taken from, Louise?
This is from Rodden Meadow.
This is from Rodden Meadow?
Yes. So, and this is taken in winter. So there's a number of views in the landscape vision impact assessment, but I think these ones were the key ones, so I wanted to kind of bring these ones up. So this is the existing photo here, and we've got one that zooms in a minute. This is the proposal. This is the barn and river barn. And you can see how this more prominent building, which is stone and closer to the river, how disguised, how you can barely see it, even in winter. And the proposal is here. So this is 1 year in, 15 years in. So the harm on that view isn't, there's no adverse harm caused by the development. If you zoom in to the next one, sorry, Aaron. This just zooms in on that view a little bit more. The siting of the building was specifically done so that, sorry, Aaron, I'm going to ask you to go back. The only bit of the site that you could really say gives any sense of openness or a sense of being in that river valley is this strip of green kind of meadow that goes along that you can kind of glimpse through the trees. And we specifically cited the building so that aspect of the site is retained, which is why it kind of, with its vertical timber cladding, completely blends into the other dense trees that are then sited behind it, because this strip of meadow that you do glimpse through is actually retained because we've sited it in a way to do that. So that's just another set of the views. So this is a plan. So this is the proposed footprint. So you can see how it fits within the complex of buildings around Garston Farm. And follows similar footprints to the surrounding barns around Garston. This is showing the view from the barn and how we've tried to retain that across the site by setting that back so that that's retained for them. We've also got additional planting on this elevation and a solid stone wall that comes across that amenity space, which is acts as a further visual but also acoustic buffer to Rodham Meadow.
Can you just clarify, you're adding that planting since our last meeting
No,
because
that's
of the...
always been
I'm
proposed.
sorry, thank you.
It's a mix of native planting that acts as a visual screen, but also attract wildlife. So it's within the ecology report, but that's always been proposed. So civic society objections, harms to heritage asset. They don't go into any detail on what they perceive that harm to be. So our response would be, we've had a heritage assessment done, who's employed by Adam purely to assess the impact on Garston Farm and the wider conservation area. And they've concluded that there's no impact on the ability to experience that listed building by the proposal. I won't keep reading it. Harmful to the owls, we've just gone through that. They haven't stated why they think it's harmful for the owls. We've submitted a large body of evidence as to why we think it's not harmful to the owls, but for reasons I've just gone through. They were worried about the legal guarantee of a BNG commitments. That's obviously covered by Adam happily involving in a legal framework to secure that. They objected to the design of materials as being out of keeping with the conservation area and with a preference for render or stone as per Garston Farm and the other barns. So I think this is our last slide, is it? So proposed design and materials. So the proposed agricultural form of the building we feel is entirely appropriate for the site. It mimics the planned form of the other dwellings, and it's supported by the findings of our heritage statement, which is undertaken by a heritage expert with 25 years of experience of historic environment-related work and a previous role as a conservation officer for Hampshire County Council. And he states the form of the proposed reflecting an agricultural character is considered appropriate in this farmstead context and will not result in harm to aesthetics of the setting. The proposed timber cladding, not only does it allow the proposal to blend into the backdrop of the dense mature trees that surround the site, which assists in mitigating any potential impact on views, it also establishes the proposal as being subservient in nature to the existing Garston Farm and the barns. Furthermore, River Barn recently received planning permission for a large timber-clad extension to their property, and both Garston Farm and the barn have got timber-clad outbuildings, so it's not out of keeping in terms of the materiality of the area. Is that it? I think that's it.
Can you just go back?
Yes.
You mentioned River Barn have recently got planning application for what?
Timber-clad extension.
On what side of the building, do you know?
Yeah, so if just down here, so closer to the Rodham Meadow.
Okay. All right, thank you.
They replaced a garage sort of structure on the back of their building.
There's a concrete box there.
There.
It's not saying
Yeah.
it's a concrete box and they built a timber.
But they're outside your house anyway.
Yeah, they're outside the owls. It was just that the suggestion that timber isn't appropriate for the area is contrary to previous planning applications.
Right, thanks.
And this is just to show you what the existing summer house is, and some imagery from Google aerial image from 2001, which shows the original sheep shelter. So it was originally a sheep shelter and then became a shed, and an image from 1999. So, but that, yeah, just to give you a bit of context for that shed.
Thank you very much. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. Peter, do you want to say something? I think there's a microphone. Right.
may I use the slides? So, it probably makes it easier. If we can go back to the beginning, I'm not going to use all of them. I'm not going to use all of them. Just go back to the beginning, if you would. That'd be great. Okay. So, if we just move on from that one, don't need that one. Okay. The concern of the garage, that has been solved. Not disagreeing with that. I think it has gone where we went, and we had a discussion about that. The information utilities, if we can go to that next slide. No, this is the, right. Keep going to the utilities. If we start with, actually leave that one on for the minute, okay? If I may stand, sorry, I've got a bad back, so I'm going to hobble around.
What you want?
Yeah, so in actual fact, when you look at the slides we've just been shown about the not being able to see this building, those slides are taken from an angle at the top up there by the top right-hand corner, which is the most dense planting there is along the river, that view. In actual fact, this whole facade here, the main facade with all its open windows and all its lighting, etc., is going to be seen directly from across, and no pictures have been shown of that and the impact of that. The wire drawings, well, they don't, but I'm just suggesting that that needs to be reviewed, because I think we're getting one picture, which is a convenient picture, which was no different to what happened the last time the planning went in. You couldn't see these buildings apparently. Well, you will be able to see them. So that's the first point. If we can, now actually if you leave that one up for a minute, I'm going to just, the previous one, sorry. That one. Yeah, that would do, yeah. So if we just talk about the heat pumps, we do not have the luxury of being allowed double glazing. It took us 3 years just to get approval to change our windows, and double glazing was refused. Even very thin double glazing, which wouldn't be an acoustic solution anyway. So we have no option if there is a noise issue from this site, from the heat pumps. The background sound level on the site is currently 20 to 25 dBA through the night. Heat pumps, when people do the calculation, and just to tell you a little bit about me, I'm a chartered building services engineer, so it is my field. Heat pumps have spurious noise when they're defrosting, and they send out tonal sounds. If what can be done is that we're guaranteed by Adam that there will not be an increase in sound level beyond the boundary above the 2025, I'd be happy to have that done, and I'd love to see the engineer do that. But the difficulty is that the simplest solution, and to prevent this happening, the heat pumps are all at the closest point to the two existing buildings. The positioning has put them there. My suggestion to the heat pump point was to put them at the end of the building where they won't point towards anything, and between them and us, them and the existing buildings, is a acoustic wall, the buildings in Rivers Reach. That has been rejected, I understand, because of cost. So the risk is that we'll be impacted by these heat pumps, and we have no way of solving it because we're a listed building. So I do not understand why it's being insisted that the heat pumps are placed right at the nearest corner to us. Sorry?
We're not rejecting that it would be there, but because our ongoing discussions with SSE, we can't, at this stage, guarantee where it would be. It would make sense for it to be next to the utility, but it's not that we are saying absolutely
The heat
won't be.
pumps, sorry.
But that would,
I'll let you speak. I should have interrupted earlier when you were talking about it. The heat pumps have nothing to do with the electricity supply, where they're positioned. The cabling to them can be moved. I'm a professional engineer, please. And especially as the garage is now on that side, because Adam has the benefit, I believe, of, has he got triple glazing? Yeah, triple glazing. So there's going to be no noise impact to Adam, no risk of it whatsoever. So I would suggest that that is something that needs to be seriously considered, because I think we're being a little bit, well, disingenuous as to how we're describing where the heat pumps go. On the electrical supply, the bridge across to Garston Farm has been there for 120 years, and is a stone bridge. It's a very lovely looking bridge. The thought that someone is now going to attach an armoured cable, which will be inside metal conduit, probably 1.5 inch conduit, which would have to be there to protect the cable, and attaching it to the bridge, I think is fairly horrific. And I think that route of access needs to be reconsidered. The other point about it is, we talk about this green bank, the cable's going to come along. It's actually, presumably, the full length of the drive, cutting straight through, because we're meant to be being ecologically friendly about this, cutting straight through all the roots of the TPO trees, which is precisely what Bloor did 23 years ago, and was seriously criticised for when they moved all the water pipes. So I think this suggestion that we can just run a cable right up through, under the canopy of the TPO trees along that road, I think is completely contrary to everything we're being told about this wonderful site and about the ecological protection of the area. Those trees have been there a lot longer than any of us have been. So I think it's important that they get protected, and they are TPO'd, and you're not allowed to damage their roots. The cable would have to be buried 450 to 600 mil down. I don't believe, just as a point, that it can go underground over the bridge, because I don't think you can dig into that bridge by any more than about 200 mil, and they will not be able to bring a cable. So I think it needs to be a serious reconsideration as to where the electrical systems come from. Okay?
Can I just ask you, is this a new point?
Yes.
This has come to light since the last meeting?
Yes.
So you didn't know about it previously?
No.
Right, okay, so it's not, so is it a change?
Yes, because the question was, where's the electricity going to come from? And how much damage will it do to the environment? At one point it was discussed that it was going to be on new poles.
And what you're saying is you're not satisfied with the answer?
Correct. Well, I don't think the answer is possible, because there is one other fundamental reason why the answer is not possible. It would have to cross at one point our land, and there is no right to cross our land, and we've not even been consulted. Cross the river. It comes from, yeah, Cedars, the new development on the other side. There's a transformer there. It's been coming from, since it was first put in.
I mean, I don't really think we're qualified to discuss electricity issues, quite frankly. That's something for Somerset Council, isn't it, really?
But I think it's the fact that it's, no regard for the situation. Interestingly, listening to the conversation earlier, with regard to the other planning application, I'm raising something which we didn't raise last time, is there's a very healthy conversation in here about having to reverse vehicles down a narrow lane onto a busy corner. That is exactly what will have to happen on this site. A swept analysis was done with the previous application, and the majority of delivery vehicles cannot turn into Adam's driveway, his proposed driveway. The turn is too tight. They equally cannot turn into the house opposite. The house opposite has to reverse into the gateway leading into the field just to get down their drive. We have a serious situation on access. Now, I know highways have made a statement that it's possible to pass. I'm sure all of you have visited the site. It is not possible to pass on that road, and it means that those vehicles will have to reverse back out onto that busy corner where there's the junction with Rivers Reach and the road going down into the other side of the estate. That is I think, you were all concerned about it just now, we will have exactly the same issue. The driveway, the road leading to the main highway, is probably 3 times the length of the one you just evaluated. And it seems to me that that's just being completely ignored. Elaine, I will mention something just now. Elaine's just said to me she's got an oil delivery coming. That will block our roadway for 20 minutes. Well, whatever, 10, 20 minutes. It's a very difficult situation on the road as it is, and I think that needs to be also considered. With regard to the statement that was made earlier, I wasn't going to raise it, but Adam has made a statement, or our architect has made a statement, that there is complete rights of access. That is in full dispute. And in actual fact, the agreement with Mrs. Toop, who bought that land originally, was that no properties, this is Amy Roadstone's wording, are to be built on this site, which defined the purpose for access. That is in the 1981 deed of agreement, and that is meant to be carried forward. So it is no way are we in a situation that access is available for this site or agreed for this site at this moment in time. There actually has been an application put in by Adam to gain access for the site because of use over the last 25, 30 years by the current occupants. That is with the land registry, and it was notified to us, and that is for use into the field. Well, we know that that is defined by use into a field for what purpose? Agricultural purposes. That doesn't give the right for domestic access. So there is a discussion going on between us. So it is not a foregone conclusion that this site even has that access. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. That has to be resolved yet. Okay. And I think that is it. We're trying to be in a situation where I don't believe there's access yet. Maybe it will come, I don't know. But what we're trying to do is at least have a situation where when this is built, it doesn't make a mess of what is the site as it currently stands, which is hence why heat pumps on the nearest point to us, electricity cables being slung off a 120-plus-year-old bridge. That bridge was there originally when the railway went in. I don't think those are sensible solutions to the situation, and I hope Adam will reconsider those and look. One option, so long as the cable can be dug, is that the railways give them the option to put the cable on the outside of the bridge so you don't see it. I've never seen that happen before, but it's possible. But I think it has to be considered. I think that covers all my points, and thank you for listening. Okay. I think Sally wants to speak. Do you want to speak?
So no, I can speak later. It was only to say that whilst we've been talking about from the meeting last week, I personally don't feel that the site should be developed. The other farmhouses and barns are outside the Owls. This site is within the Owls designation. I know that their heritage consultant said there's no impact on the heritage, but actually if you come over the bridge, as you can see from some of the pictures, the setting of Garston Farm is very much a rural setting. As you come over the bridge, you see that the rural character of the landscape to one side, and that was actually also upheld at the appeal in 2019 by the inspector there, who also agreed that that it was the setting of Garston Farm. So in principle, I mean, the changes that we've discussed with Adam, if it were allowed, moving the garage is a benefit, because obviously before you came over the bridge and the garage was right in your central focus. But I do think a building of this size does detract from the heritage asset. And with regards to the slides, I don't know if the close-up one, if you look at the existing photo montage, what it says, the next one, I think this one, you can't see, it's a bit green, but if you look at this one, you can actually see straight through the 2-metre high shed. So if you can see the 2-metre high shed, you'll certainly, and that's been in there for quite a few years, so it's weathered, you're certainly going to be able to see a much larger building and garage. And I think careful rendering actually is more, it's more to do, you're not seeing it because of careful rendering, definitely on year one, let alone, that was, I'm a landscape architect, qualified as well, so I'm often used to seeing a lot of these sort of applications, and because I'm a member of the Institute too.
Just one final point on my side, by the way, just on the heat pump situation. There is no shielding between the bedrooms of Garston Farm and the location of the heat pumps. The stone walls on the boundary is only less than 1.5 metres high, and the stone walls around Garston Farm are only 7 foot high. So there's no shielding to the upper story. So, yeah. And the any screening by trees, etc., provides no acoustic benefit whatsoever. So I think I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Right. Well, Polly, if you want to.
I was just wondering, as Adam has a microphone, I just wondered if there's any, did you want to reply on any of those things?
Hello. Yeah, I'd just like to reply to a couple of those issues. The first one was to do with the SSE. So taking it across the bridge is not their only option. The other option was to come across the river. SSE asked us, is there another way in? And we said, yeah, there's a road and a bridge. So that is not a definite thing. We didn't say that, you know, they're just looking at options, how to get services in there. Also, it's not right under the canopy of TPO trees. It's going to be, you know, right up to the existing road. So I doubt it's going to harm root plates anyway. Also, I've run in new services to buildings before, and if you can't get to a certain depth, they put it in special ducting. You know, it's not always 450 in the ground, and that's the only option. They could clip it to the outside of a railway bridge in ducting. You know, there is options. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that is we're not saying we're coming up over the bridge and stuff. SSE have asked that.
As I said, I don't think we're experts at electrical installations. That's really down to Somerset
Exactly.
to decide that part of it, quite frankly.
The other issue with the heat pumps is, like Louise said to you guys, we haven't decided a location. However, having trees and walls and shrubs and garages and buildings is a physical boundary that will diffuse the sound.
That's not true. There is no physical buildings between us and the upstairs windows.
And well, firstly, one of the buildings is Silver Barn. And no, but they have
Again,
a garage.
in terms of the air source heat pumps and the noise, that's something the environmental.
Yeah, okay.
He'll decide that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. They know the sound and how sound moves, and
Yeah.
they're getting quite good at that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and while I remember it, just replying to one of Sally's last comments is, obviously the timber will weather. You know, it is going to look brighter when it's first done, you know, especially cedar clad or oak, it will, but it will weather. And like we said before, that we are having a planting scheme there as well, which will make it less visible. And that's what the landscape visual assessment kind of proves.
It's not about it being completely invisible. It's about, does it harm that existing view? Having it there. It's about the harm, not about saying it's completely invisible.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, I'm going to take a couple more comments, and then otherwise we're going to go around in circles. So yeah, carry on. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Elaine Gilbert. I live at Garston Farm Cottage, which is the house directly opposite the driveway that Peter was talking about. I'd just like to say that the river, I know we do tend to come into that, into Adam's sort of entrance to the field and then back down, but it's actually more a question of convenience than anything else. We can go down, we can actually do 3-point turns to turn around and come back out the right way. It's been our choice not to, but it's not a huge problem. That's number one. Number two, our title deeds gave us access for both Garston Farm Cottage and separately for the fields. So there should not be a problem with access. And I'd finally just like to say that I'd love to see a sustainable future for this field. At the moment, it's, sorry, I'm not talking directly in. This is as good a scheme as I've seen that we can go with, that will actually settle the field, and there won't be anything coming up in 5 or 10 years' time where it's going to be looked at again and something far more dense could be put in its place. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and we actually should grab it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Sally, do you want to make last comment?
No, it was generally just to do with it when you're saying that the timber of the cladding and you wouldn't see it straight away. That isn't actually what the year one photos show. They show it completely disappeared, which if it's supposed to be a true representation of what you're going to see.
Okay, thank you. Right, councillors, over to you. Philip?
Hi, good evening. It'll come as no surprise that I'm struggling over this one. I've just got 2 very quick questions. They're closed questions, so I only need a yes or no if you don't mind. Has a heritage officer actually visited the site? And have SSE yet visited the site? No. But for the heritage report, someone actually visited the site? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't clear on that. What, without going into all the minutiae and other bits and pieces that we've talked about tonight, for me, it's just whether or not this is the right site for a development. And I have a couple of things before I come on to my sort of final points. One is you stated that you wanted it to blend in with Garston Farm, so you're going to make it look like a barn, so it looks like a sort of an incorporated part of the buildings that are already there. None of them are actually timber clad. They're all stone. So if you wanted to mimic and almost complete that semicircle, then it could be, we could say, well, stone would have been better than timber. That's one thing. The other thing is I'm struggling with the fact that I can't remember in the time that I've been serving on this since 2022 on this committee, where you as the applicants are trying to put in so many points to mitigate something. And that, for me, starts to feel slightly uncomfortable, that you're mitigating, disruption to wildlife, you're mitigating noise to surrounding properties, you're mitigating light and view across Rodden Meadow, you're trying to mitigate by building a wall that will stop light pollution, you're mitigating, heat source pumps and so on. And I'm thinking, well, are we getting to the point of overload just to get it past the application? I think I mentioned to you last time about the issue of the wildlife biodiversity and so on. And I do take on board exactly what you're proposing about tree planting and the water meadow and bees and plants and so on. But as I said to you at the time, it could be argued just actually having a dwelling on there with people living there, that actually disrupts the biodiversity because you've got people in a space where they haven't been. So for a number of reasons, I'm struggling a little bit with it. And also I found it, and I think I mentioned it to you before, I don't think I've ever seen an application with so many people writing in to support it. It almost felt overkill. Let's bombard them with a number of people that, and most of them, as I did my research on them, have nothing to do and don't live in Frome either. But I'm just struggling with the fact that it doesn't sit right with me at the moment, and that's not a pun intended at all. It just seems that it's trying a bit too hard to fit into that space. I'd need a little bit more convincing on a few things. And I must thank you for your presentation this evening that has sorted out a few things that I had questions. And it was very useful to meet Adam on site the other day and actually walk it. That's all I've got to say for the moment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Philip. Holly, do you want to, I saw you've got the mic.
Thanks for both parties coming back with so much detail, and it is really, really helpful. And the points that you both made are, hugely interesting and really help us understand what is obviously going to, be a significant build if it passes. I still get this sense that there's. I feel that the fact that you've moved the garage and answered the questions and done certain things to change it, to get it back here, all of that's great, but it still feels that there's more things to discuss between the parties to make it. It still feels like it's not ready because you have really significant disagreements that actually might be planning related. And so therefore coming to kind of park it here seems still a little bit premature because I don't want to keep deferring it because we don't have enough information, but that's what it feels like. It's like as soon as you have answered some points and changed the garage and, there's more to be discussed further to what the objections were resolved before, or maybe you don't feel they were resolved. I can hear that you feel they weren't resolved. I think I agree with you, Steve, that there are things that we can't decide on, and that makes that really difficult. I feel like Adam has a really good sense of being a custodian of that land and the river, if it weren't right next to a public space and a listed building, obviously it'd be a lot less complicated. So, further to what Philip's saying, there is some, and I do understand what he's saying a bit, that, is this the site? I just feel like he would look after it really well. He would be, he's doing a sensitive build. He's sensitive to the surroundings and the wildlife, and you may not agree, I can hear you don't agree with that at all, but it comes across certainly that way. I think the impact of harm is appearing from your presentation to be minimal, and even from the objection to be really minimal. So I'm leaning to go for it, but the technical objections that you're raising as neighbours, they're beyond what I understanding. So I feel more for it than against it, but can't comment on so many little details. I feel like you're not quite ready to come here. Is that right?
Jane wants to say something as the expert.
Just in response to Polly, really. Say, perhaps we should defer again, or perhaps it's not quite ready. The problem is, as I understand it, the applicants only have one chance to make amendments to this application. So I think we're in a position where we need to say what our response is at this meeting. Just wanted to clarify that, really.
I empathise with your thing about the heat pumps. I live in a listed building with single glazed windows. A neighbour down the road is installing a heat pump, and it's not installed yet, but I'm waiting to see what that will sound like. I am nervous around that. We all know what air conditioning units sound like on all the time, so I think that's Madam, I think you're against it per se, aren't you? You don't want it built, really, from what you've said. Yeah, so you prefer nothing at all, whatever we discuss. Yeah, I don't think I'm against it. I am concerned that, we're seeing the best side of it here, and I'm not sure that's winter foliage where you would see it from Rodden Meadow. It's going to is going to be there. Yeah, it's got very technical, hasn't it? It's got very technical about access and power and all sorts of things. But if we have to make a decision tonight, then I think with all the necessary safeguards in place, and I probably would not object.
I think what we've got to think about is, it's just my view, so I'm not trying to steer anyone, is in principle, if things, you know, and I've got an air source heat pump. I'm not going to go into the details of what I think of it. It's not important for this one. And the whole utilities and whatever is way out of our scope. To me, it comes down to, in principle, if all of the issues that Peter has raised with electricity and the air source heat pump and making sure that they're not going to put lines through trees and things like that, if all that is solved, in principle, are we happy that this site can be developed? It's against DP2, which is the OLAS, the open area of local significance. So we're going against that particular policy, and we're effectively saying, are the harms mitigated enough that this can go ahead? All the other bits and pieces are really down to environment officers or whoever looks at electricity supply and stuff like that.
Goes to Somerset, how much Greens will be given against the policy?
Who knows?
I think Louise wanted to respond.
Oh, sorry, Louise, I was looking at this lot. Go on. You've got a mic now.
So I think one thing to say is that if Adam isn't going to get planning, he is not loaded, and he can't be, getting a guarantee, digging up that service route, knowing if it's not going to get planning, he can't. So the technicalities of that, a lot of that depend on, okay, obviously they need to be sorted out and we need to get those through and there needs to be a way to do it. But some of these things are going to be, quite expensive, and if he's not going to get planning, he can't afford to check it. So there's a kind of a bit of a to and fro with that. Yeah. Also, although you're saying that it's against policy DP2, we would say that there isn't that harm there. So I just wanted to...
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. Yeah, I'm trying to simply...
But I understand why you would say that, because on the face of it, I completely understand that if you're developing on undeveloped land that's got an ALS designation, your initial thing would be like, oh, it's obviously harming it.
Yes.
And so I hope that the body of evidence, doesn't show that.
Firstly, Somerset have stated in the documentation they are against it, policy. And so the other point was on the heat pump question, rather than being left open, I'm sure there is a solution that they just get moved. But it's just a suggestion.
Is it worth... Oh, sorry, Jane, go on. I think it's probably just sort of, without bringing it back to the question of policy again, obviously there was a previous application on this site in 2018, and our response to it was that it was against policy due to the OALSR design guide and the neighbourhood plan. However, that application did not include any of the kind of mitigations that were proposed in this application, and so. I think what it comes down to, in terms of us, the potential for us to go against policy is to weigh whether those mitigations are sufficient for us to decide the other way. I don't know if Jane has anything to follow up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the gentleman was referring to the response from Somerset's policy officers, who have said that it is against policy, and I don't think any of us would argue with that necessarily. I think whether it harms the owls, the previous application that was refused to appeal, the policy response there was different. In fact, it suggested that it didn't harm it. So, you know, it comes back to planning is, oh God, I've forgotten the word. Different people look at it differently. Subjective, that's the word. Yeah, thank you. And, you know, we have also spoken about the looking after the land. And I think I think we're at that point as a committee. This is not necessarily what, you know, I'm not speaking for Somerset Council here, but, you know, do the potential benefits outweigh the harms? And I think, you know, as we have discussed previously, we would need to be assured that if this building went ahead and how the land is going to be managed, that can be done, that can be secured. So not just securing the fact that the additions to the BNG, but the longer term stewardship of that land. You know, should Adam and his family just, you know, decide for whatever reason that they need to move on, what happens then? So then, you know, whether it's looking at whether it can be secured through a Section 106 agreement, whether that's secure enough, whether there needs to be a greater commitment, perhaps putting that land in trust. You know, I think that's where the balance is. A lot of the things that we've talked about in terms of the electricity connections, the heat pumps, how much noise they will make, those things can, if Somerset choose to, be conditioned, and they will require further information to be submitted before any works can be carried out. I appreciate your point, Philip. You know, there's a lot of mitigation going on here, but you know, that does happen in lots of applications that we see. So there is the potential for things to be dealt with at a further stage. In terms of the land ownership, planning permission can still be issued with the access issues to be sorted out at a later date. If they can't be sorted out, then you can't implement your planning application. So there are ways in which it could be dealt with should you feel that that's what you want to do.
That's interesting what you said about trust, because putting the land in trust, because that was one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, you were saying a suitable legal mechanism, and I didn't know, you know, what those options were. You know, that was really one of the key things that was jumping out. So you think that there's a precedent for a private dwelling to have its land put in trust for future?
I don't know is the answer to that. I'm just suggesting that might be an option. It might not be one that Adam and his family are happy to consider, but I think then if there is an option, I can't sit here and tell you that it will be acceptable through the planning process. That's for Somerset to decide, but you may feel that that's something that you want to see.
Seem to be getting to the point of, are we happy or not in principle for a development on the site, subject to conditions as Jane has put out?
This development, not a development, because the detail that is being included in this application is so in depth compared to a lot of things that we see, and that mitigation, you know, is obviously necessary because of all the restrictions on the land. So not just any application.
In principle of this development. So the principle of the development, and then there's obviously a lot of conditions regarding noise and electricity and the land ownership going forward and how that land is protected going forward, which would have to be...
This has been going on so long, I've forgotten, but have you had a pre-app on this?
Yeah, it was.
Yes, we had a pre-app, and they said that it was on an OWL site, and therefore contrary to policy DP2. So that was their main response, and they refused to come out and visit the site, even though we'd paid for a meeting pre-app, which is a shame because I think that might have helped kind of a bit more understanding about the site. But
Expecting a different decision to what you've been advised on the pre-app?
because there's been a couple of different policy officer comments on whether it's, so the previous application for 3 houses, the policy officer said it wasn't contrary to DP2. They've now come back and said it was, so that there's a bit of subjectivity there. And there's also a feeling that there's a slight lack of understanding of the openness of the site from Somerset, that it's coming from a sense of, oh, you're building on an owls and therefore it must be harmful. So we wanted to come back with that and show why we believed the proposal wasn't harmful in terms of that aspect.
Because we could say we're minded to say, yes, this is a good idea, go ahead, only to raise your expectations to get knocked back by Somerset.
Yeah, which we completely understand, and which, a lot, you've seen from the application that it is a lot based on the owls, and there's a reason for that, is because we know that is a big part of it. We have got a response to the policy officer and Somerset drafted, which we will be issuing probably tomorrow, in response to their comments, because they don't provide any evidence as to why they say it's harmful. Whereas, so we've just asked them to kind of provide more evidence as to why they see it as harmful. And we understand that, you can only look at it from, is this going to be is this a good proposal for this site for Frome? We understand it doesn't necessarily mean that Somerset would agree with that.
It's just worth saying that the planning policy officer from the 2018 application, who suggested that the encroachment on the OALS wouldn't be harmful, in the ultimate decision by the deciding officer, that opinion was disagreed with in his determination. Another aspect of this I just want to bring us back to in terms of where we're at with this application is, obviously we're not in a position where we can revise the current application, so as Jane suggested, we're at a point where we have to decide object or not object. And one of the key aspects of this is getting that kind of security around future use of the site and Section 106. We've had a comment in respect to that, saying that will be done subsequent to obtaining planning. I think it's up to the committee whether that's sufficient in terms of the current decision, bearing in mind that we probably have to decide yay or nay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cornerstone.
Yeah, sorry, it's not that, okay, planning is granted, then we can do the Section 106. It's knowing that planning, it's being given the go-ahead that, it will be, and then that will be drafted prior to it being finally agreed. So it's not like running out the door and saying, that is absolutely committed, and absolutely committed to that framework. It's just that it obviously involves hiring a solicitor and getting them to draw that up, which, if it's looking like it's not going to happen, is a lot of money for him to spend. So we need to get some kind of a bit further down the line, knowing that is it going to look like it's going to happen or not. If it looks like it's going to happen, then that's absolutely what Adam will do.
Yeah, sure. I think we need to bring
Wouldn't it set a dangerous precedent that you're overriding the owls? Just a thought on this.
Shall we?
I don't know. Would it, Jane?
I understand the question, but I think what we're talking about is if councillors decided to support this application, it would be on the absolute understanding that the remainder of the land is protected either through that Section 106 or trust or whatever mechanism is appropriate to do that.
Can I ask if the trust, setting up a trust, because obviously a lot's made of the BNG and the increase in biodiversity net gain, and if it's a site that has to comply with BNG, you have to have it checked every sort of year 1, 3, 5, up to year 30, and you have to make sure you're achieving that. Is that something that would be in the section 106 as well?
Yes, it would be.
And that it achieves within a certain time frame and...
Yes, it would be, yeah.
Any other comments from anyone? Before we wrap this
Just
up?
a move to decision.
Just very briefly, I think from my point of view, having said that I was sort of undecided and find it quite difficult, I think I have decided. But I just want to say that I think that it is a shame that both sides haven't been able to come to some kind of agreement on this, regardless of what we're going to say. And I just want to state that, again, I think that it is trying to make something fit that doesn't feel quite right, you know, for owls and DP2 and all the rest of it. And it's almost trying to, you know, trying to force it through. And I have to say, Peter and Sally are my constituents. That doesn't give them any favour. Adam's a constituent, and he owns that piece of land. Sorry, you're a constituent. And listening to all sides, you know, I have to say that I think some of the issues raised are quite important, but I think others perhaps, you know, they could have been thrashed out earlier through negotiation and discussion. So I think, yeah, I think I'm okay with what I will vote.
Right. Okay. Shall I kick off then? Or do you want to say anything before I kick off? Or no, you don't, do you? Okay. So where I'm at with this, I am okay with the principle of this development on this site, subject to a whole load of things, mainly a lot of the things that Peter raised around noise, around electricity, where that's going to go, also around how the land is protected going forward, safeguards around the ecology and the BNG going forward as well. And I think there's a couple of things that you mentioned as well, Jane, earlier on that I think should be conditioned. So a whole raft of conditions, and I do get that we are, that it isn't an OLAS site, but I do think that what Adam is proposing will protect the site, protect the majority of the site for decades to come. So that's where I'm landing on it. Over to you guys.
I'm largely in support of the application, subject to, I feel like it's not going to get all the way down the line, a sense of the things that are coming up, but the fact that somebody wouldn't come out for a pre-app seems crazy, because it's like writing it off without even looking at it, and all of the protection of the land seems not like a mitigation. It seems like a good intention of a good custodian of the land, and that's what's making me feel like the rest of it will be carried out sensitively. So, subject to the things you said, I am in support.
I think just in a slight mitigation, use the word mitigation a lot tonight, of Somerset planning, they have been in emergency measures for the last few months. I think they've only just come out of emergency measures. So I think it's public knowledge that they are really, really stretched at the moment. So yeah, it may well be, or they just, it was, I don't know, I'm not trying to sort of preempt what they said, but in some ways I'm not surprised they came out, put it that way. No.
Principal, with regard to everything you said, I wouldn't object to this. I think it's an excellent, I like the design, I like the mitigation that's planned for it. However, I am very nervous about us supporting something that won't get any further and ruin your dreams for the site. But in principle, I like the design of it. I think you've done as best as you can to site the design on the area that it is. But I am worried that somebody from Taunton who can't be bothered to come this far will just knock it back for you.
Last but not least, do you want to say anything else?
I think I agree with what Mark says about the fact that, you know, I'm sure that you're quite nervous about what Somerset, you know, Taunton are going to say. I think I have to congratulate you on the fact that I agree with Mark as well, that it is a great design. The question for me is it in the right place? And I think for lots of reasons that I've heard, you know, starting with Owen and going all the way down the table, I don't think I can support this.
Thanks for that. Jane, where are we?
Where are we? So I think in general, or majority of what I'm hearing is that support the principle of the proposed dwelling and its design, but would want to see some conditions to deal with issues of noise, the electricity supply to ensure that there's no damage to any tree roots, yeah, I'm getting to access. And also that we'd want to see some kind of sweat path analysis to demonstrate that service and delivery vehicles can enter and exit in a forward gear. We feel that the benefit of the stewardship of the land and the increase in the BNG outweigh the harms. But we would want to see a legal agreement or some kind of mechanism that can be secured to demonstrate not only that the BNG gains secured long term, but also that the management and the protection of the rest of the site from development is in place. I don't think we should suggest what we think that is, no. But that, as you say, that would be for the legal teams to sort out. And what Mark is saying about Somerset might still refuse it. Yeah. I think they know that. You know, that's a risk that they're willing to take, I think.
Okay, thank you, Jane. I'm happy to propose that. That's 3 against.
So that's 3 in favour.
And you're against.
And 1 against, so that is carried by majority.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Long one. I think we'll take a 5-minute break now if everyone's all right, because I desperately need a glass of drink. We'll type everything up and put it on our portal for everyone to see. Going forward.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry it was so long. Yes, all right. Sorry, we took time. Thank you, Irene.
Okay, item number 863. This is Lucky Chance Portway, construction of a lean-to side extension to provide a green room, office and storage facilities. It's in a conservation area, it's not listed. It's the former Portway Methodist Chapel, which has been occupied by Lucky Chance for a few years now. It's 56 square metres of internal floor space.
Could you just get rid of that box so we can see the thing?
Oh, sorry. Get rid of that box. Sorry. Is that good?
Yep.
Oh, and I'll share my screen properly as well. Here we go for a current slide. Good. So yes, it will cover the windows of the main hall on the east side. There'll be roof lights, and there have been measures not to cut across an existing tall arched window. Civic Society have offered no objection, subject to a few things, I think. This is the existing and proposed footprint. You can see the extension lean-to the top side of the building there, the north side, or whichever.
Great.
Where is Alexander Road in relation to that?
Bottom, yeah.
Just see that as it goes, see that little line that goes down
goes
into
round
the
corner, yeah.
left, that's the start of Alexander Road,
There's the layout, there's the elevation change, existing and proposed, and front on. You can see the existing lean-to on the side, and from the rear.
Great, thank you.
Fine, good idea.
It's a one Lucky Chance to me has been a wonderful example of how an old building can be brought back to life and enhanced with solar panels and now this. So I'm fully in support of this one, I have to admit.
Fantastic for the area, yes.
Yeah. I can propose that.
And that's unanimous, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's easy.
This is item number 868, number 8 Chestnut Close, Frome. It's conversion of a single 4-bedroom semi into one 3-bedroom dwelling and one 2-bedroom dwelling. No increase in the building's overall footprint, height or massing, minor external alterations, reopening of an entrance door and infilling of a side window opening. You can see the existing elevation, a photo of the existing rear of the building there. These images are not difficult to see in yellow, but you can see the satellite image there just about. That's from the other side, from the front. And existing, and you can see the garden sort of split in two along that purple line in the middle there. So it's that single dwelling split into two. Yeah, existing and proposed party wall down the middle there, and a 1-bedroom house to the right and a 2-bedroom house to the left. That's upper floors. As you can see, no significant changes to the elevations.
I drove around here the other day, had a look at these. I think it's actually a really clever idea, to be perfectly honest with you. There's a lot of smaller houses in that particular area of the estate, and I think we need smaller ones. We need smaller ones, I think. And from the outside, you wouldn't know. You really wouldn't know. Or the only visual thing you'll see is a fence in the garden, I think, and that's about it. So I have to admit, I had no objection to this whatsoever.
Doesn't, nothing that's in it, minimum space standards I'm trying to reach for and grapple for, it doesn't mess with that. Jane, have you seen that?
There isn't anything, any policy in the current local plan, amended local plan that refers to space standards. I think as a committee, what you've always felt in the past is if somebody wants to live in a dwelling of that size, then that is their choice.
Yeah, I mean, there's adequate and then there's adequate, isn't there? I mean, from the plans, it looks like it's a good opportunity as a starter home or a small home for a couple or whatever, so.
I think Owen described it at the beginning. When I looked at this, I thought I like it. I think it's great. But one thing I was thinking about was cars, traffic, and so on. And I think you said it's split into two now. So the only issue would be, if there is one, is extra cars into that close space. But otherwise, absolutely fine.
But it's 1970s, is it? And so there does tend to be a little bit more room in those roads than the 80s or 90s ones.
So I'm going to propose no objection.
And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, item number 869. This is 19 Grange Road. Erection of a two-storey side and rear extension to create a 5-bedroom home. It's a reconfiguring of the current property, addition of bedrooms and other rooms, and there's a first floor balcony across the rear, first floor. You can see it on satellite view there, outlined in red. And there's a current, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
there it is from the front. Yeah. It's a funny yellow world. And, okay, so this is the proposed street view, sort of following on from that street view there, which is this, the garage sort of sticking out to the left there. The proposed street view sort of builds on top of it. The extended bit to the left is, the ridgeline is slightly lower. However, you'll note that the levels, it's on a higher level to the property than the property to the left there. So yeah, more elevations. There's a significant increase in the size of the building. There's a balcony to the rear there, you can see.
If you could go back to have a look at the proposed north elevation. Go back one slide if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, stop working.
Yeah, right. Proposed north elevation, bottom left. And then if you go back to the photo from the front of the house. Right. In my view, that is really going to be overbearing to that. It's already higher. And they're adding another story on top of those garages. It's going to be quite overbearing to that bungalow, and it is a bungalow on the left. There has been an objection.
There's been one objection.
Bungalow on the left.
Was it from there?
Yeah.
Looks like a garage attached to a house that's been originally.
It's got a cat thingy roof, isn't it, Jane?
It's a what?
Cat slide roof.
That slide roof.
Okay.
Have they?
Windows on that side of the house in the proposal.
In the proposal, let's have a look. So,
No. It's the one on the ground floor.
on the ground floor, but not the upper floors.
What about adding a balcony is a big move. What about the sight lines to the neighbours from the balcony? Is that, we haven't got that information?
Yeah, I'm just.
Should actually even overlook the houses behind, but I can't really tell that from here.
So you can see the site plan there. I mean, there are properties back gardens to the rear here, and it's elevated. It is elevating in relative to the surrounding properties to this side and this side.
Looking at Street View, it's actually got quite a long garden, and then beyond that, beyond the fence, there's another garden, and then yes, Mark was saying about there's the house from access from Bath Road. It's the second house, the new build behind the house that has a tennis court at the front. So actually, in a straight line view, it crosses their own garden plus another garden. and a tree, there's some trees, so,
It shouldn't really impact the house being
no, it won't. Not from this, but.
to the left.
Yes, to the left of the front, yes, to the right of where we're looking there, because that's right close to that bungalow.
Yeah. That one.
Because we can't see at the back, can we?
No, I couldn't get a good image from the back.
From the back, looking into the bungalow's garden on the left is what I was wondering.
I think it would have, I really do think it's going to affect that residential, the amenity of that bungalow on the left.
And they've objected.
And they've objected.
I don't think it won't, they won't have views into the house. They already will have views into rear gardens, but I think that will be intensified by the fact that, one, it will be closer, and two, that there'll be a balcony there. So I think potentially it will impact on the amenity.
Back to the photograph, there is actually a window there already. Above
Yeah.
Goes on the right, there's a window that overlooks now.
Possibly a bathroom window, I don't know. No, it's bedroom window. Did I have that up? Yep, there is. Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So I think if you look at where the position of the balcony, which will be, it's not necessarily the views, because there's enough space from the properties right behind it, but I think there'll be more imposing views into the property on the right hand sides. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to affect the houses behind it.
No.
So I think it's just that one to the right as we're looking at it, isn't it?
As we're looking at it now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
what she said.
Well, I don't like objecting to extensions. I think on this one I'm going to object to it.
Okay,
There you go.
suppose that then.
So we're discussing it offline without our mic. You've given up.
Anyone just got any comments? I mean,
Are you saying it's because loss of amenity?
I just think it's overbearing
Yeah.
to that bungalow. I think I think it's a huge extension. I haven't got a problem with the people putting huge extensions on, but I think the fact that the bungalow is already is lower as you go down the hill, I just think it's going to be overbearing, and it's going to result in a loss of amenity to the bungalow. That's where I'm landing on it at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I thought exactly what I was just about to say. Is there's so much space in that land that, it's because it's already a single story that they're just using that. And it would be obviously a lot more hassle and expense to site it somewhere else. But there's so much actual space that to put such a big one right up against that bungalow, which is lower, seems like I thought the redesign. I don't know.
If we look at the existing two garages, I'm looking at Street View, same as that. Right. You've then got there's a gap with on Street View it shows a bin, probably a gate. Then you have a driveway which is actually wider than a car. Then the next bungalow, and that window at the moment seems to be on here about the same level as the garage is. So how much would we need to consider that extension is going to impact on what's there?
Why are we saying that's a bungalow and it's got 2 stories? Oh, okay.
The house next door.
Yeah, sorry.
The building next door.
I don't think there was any, the angle of the view from the window that wasn't included on the drawings. So, the rule of thumb is 25 degrees, isn't it? Although that's not. 25 degrees. Yeah.
I think it's just it's the levels that make it feel as though it's going to be overbearing, or I know there is a gap in between, but if you think that continuation of the height of the existing building along on top of those garages, combined with the how much lower the adjoining property is, and also it's the bulk of it in the street scene as well. I think if it were behind, or if there were a different configuration to the roof, it might not feel quite so imposing, but I think that's what it is.
Agreed.
We're looking at a massing.
Yes.
Massing. Is yours play?
Thank you for your succinct, summary, because that's what we needed.
So has somebody proposed that?
Yeah, I'll
or-
propose that. What we're proposing?
That we're objecting because it will impact on the amenity of the neighbouring property, a concern about overlooking, and yes, thank you, that's unanimous, thank you.
Okay, and I think that is the last one. Great, thank you very much, Aaron. Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Can you vote on the remaining ones here?
All right, come on. Are you Andy Jones or something? Right, if we could vote that we will go ahead with Owen's comments on the other applications. So Philip, thank you for proposing that.
That's unanimous, thank you.
Unanimous, right. The next meeting, I understand, is 19th of Feb, from memory. Is that about right? All right. Next meeting, 19th of Feb. Thank you, everybody, and good night.